Hello, this is Rory from Rate My Funeral. That was Rate, by the way. Welcome to another tutorial. In this tutorial we're going to have a go at creating this. So as you can see, it's just simply lifting the cloth off of something. Quite a few tricky things with this and problematic bits and pieces, but we'll have a go and see how we get on. Yeah, let's hop in and see what we do. Right, okay, let's start somewhere near the beginning. And I'm going to do the same thing again. So I'm going to create a text spline. You can do this either with a mo text or text spline, that's fine. It doesn't really matter exactly what you're lifting this off. There are some edge issues, but we'll get into that in a bit. But let's just start with this. So in the example I had 3, so I'll do that again. So I'm just going to create the R and choose a better font. Yep, something like that one. And I'm just going to make that a touch bigger. Okay, cool. And then I'm going to put that into an extrude NURBS. Now, remember the tip, if you hold Alt when you select extrude NURBS, it automatically places it in there, just makes it a bit quicker. And we're going to move it back a little there, just to so it sits a bit deeper. Okay, so there's our R created. I always do this. If you look at it, you just have this sharp line. I don't like that, so I always go to caps, fillet cap, and as you can see that puts an edge on it, but we don't want it quite as much as that. I only want something subtle, so I'm going to go for something like 2, 2, and maybe 3 and 3. There you go, and now that gives you just a nicer edge which can reflect a bit of light off. So that's all cool. I now want another 2 of these, so I'm just going to highlight it, drag it, hold Control and release, and that gives me a copy which I can move over like that. Just as a little note, when you're moving things around, if you move it by the text object, it will move around, but in this case, whoa, look at that. I've never seen that one before. I think this is possibly OpenGL issues. I'm just going to switch my OpenGL off. There we go. That's what it was supposed to do. So, sorry, if you move it by just the text, it will move around, and that's fine, but that will be moving it because it's a child of the extrude NURBS. That'll be moving it separately. So if you see that that one's position is still there, so it's not a good idea to do it like that. So always move it by the extrude NURB. There we go. Right, we're back to where we started. So that's cool. So that's going to be my M, like so, and same thing again, Control Alt, and I'm going to make an F. There we go, and we'll move that over here. Just going to hop into front view there, and let's line these up. So the green line here is the center of my scene. So I'm going to grab everything and position it so the M is right in the middle. Grab the 2 side ones and put them so they're a little way apart. Maybe I'm just going to put them just a sort of touch past that line, and the same the other way, so it's just a touch past that line. Okay, and that is the first bit set up. Alright, we have our text, so we can put those all in, and I suppose we should really name them, shouldn't we? It keeps things tidy if you name stuff and easier to find later on. Right, we have our letters. We now want a floor or a scene. For this I'm going to use Infidio, my tool, because it just makes it a lot easier, but you could always just create a floor and create a background and do all of that sort of stuff, but this just makes it a little quicker. So I'm just going to drop Infidio in. Because of my OpenGL issues, it looks a bit funky, but if we render that out, you can see that's fine. And we can let me do one thing at a time for you. Right, okay, so we've added that, but because I've got this dodgy colouring, I'm just going to turn my OpenGL back on, and hopefully we won't have too many problems with it. Okay, so we've created our scenery where it lives. That's great. Put them in the bottom. What is next? Next, I'm just going to create some lights because I can't stand looking at if you render that out, it just looks naff like that. So, just going to stick a few area lights in. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time making this look all fantastic, but I will show you something quite handy. If you press R, you can rotate it. Now you can position that light and that's all fine, but just to make things a little quicker, once you've created your first light, just create a null, like so, and then drop that light into the null. Then rotate the null, and you can just move that, so you've got one maybe over there. Make a copy of the null, and you can maybe move that one, so that's sort of over there, and maybe up a bit. Just makes it a little easier for maneuvering lights about. I'm going to select both the lights and turn on an area shadow for those. And let's just have a look and see how that looks, because I'm guessing it's going to be really dark at the back there. Yeah, it is indeed. So I'm going to create one more light, which is going to be kind of like a hair light. And I'm going to, right, so that's over there. So I'm just going to put that so that's kind of beaming down from the top, and hopefully that should soften that up out the back there a little. It gives us some interesting shapes on the floor. That could be what we're after, but that'll certainly do in this case. Okay, so that's the lighting. So that's great. I'm just going to group those. Alt and G puts them into a null of their own, and we'll just call that lighting. There we go. And we've got our scene set up with our nice Infinity Studio. That's really easy. Cool. Next we want to set up a cloth. So the way we're going to do this is using a plane object, and I'm going to place it above, let's start above the R. I'm just going to hop into top view so I can see what it is I'm doing. Right, so we want it roughly about in the middle of the R, and a little bit sort of wider, and maybe a little bit longer as well, so that way it flaps down nicely. If we go to display and then turn on Gurard shading with lines, we'll see the polygons inside of there, which is good. That's what we want to see. And basically we're going to give this plane a cloth tag. Although before I do that, actually I'm just going to create the other cloths as well. So just click and drag that, and we'll put those up there. We'll move that one over the M, and we'll just raise it just a bit so they don't intersect. And this one we'll put over the F, and that's okay like that. So you can see there are three cloths. Just going to turn these two off for the minute. We're only going to concentrate on this one. So now we're going to create a cloth tag. So simulation tags cloth, which is just there. This is in R13 and R14. I'm doing it in 14. In previous ones I think it is there, but I'm not sure. I can't remember the names of the folders, so if you're using pre-13, have a look around it. I'm pretty sure it is in there somewhere. But anyway, so we've done that. Now what happens if we press play? Nothing at all. And the reason for this is because this is a parametric object, and the cloth doesn't seem to affect it. There probably is a way of doing it, but I couldn't find it in my tests, so I just made it editable by pressing C. And as you can see, that's now editable, and if we press play, it now falls down. Now it's being affected by the dynamics, but not in the normal way. So even though Infidio, for example, is set up with the tags already, so physics is already on Infidio, cloth works a bit differently, and you need what's called a cloth collider. So basically, if you will highlight all of these, right click, and simulation cloth collider. Okay, so now when we press play, and there we go. That's looking pretty groovy. Now, so if I just pause that at this point here. Now, if we have a look at that, by rendering that out, you'll see we kind of, it's not too bad, but you do get these kind of jaggedy edges that look a bit funny, and it's not quite right. So In order to fix that, we can actually place it inside of a hyperNURBS object. Remember, hold Alt, and it automatically puts it in. And the beauty of this is because the cloth tag is on the plane, it doesn't really affect the speed. So see, so it'll still fall and sit quite neatly. Yeah, if we now render that out, so that's looking pretty cool. We've got a bit of an issue here with it coming through the cloth, but we'll worry about that in a bit as well. Okay, so that's the R. So that's with the default settings. So we're going to modify these slightly. I'm just going to highlight all of the colliders first. I'm just going to turn down the bounce on those. So it's about 10. And there's my OpenGL issue again. And then friction 15. Okay, and then for the cloth itself, this is kind of trial and error depending on what you're after, but this is how I found it. I think I did stiffness was about 70. Flexion you want quite low, so I did that about 4. Bounce I turned that right down, so I did that about 5. And friction I turned that down to about 45, I think it was. And mass 0.5. Now if we press play, there we go. So that's now sitting on it quite nicely. That's pretty groovy. Obviously the bigger you make it, the more it will maybe flap out onto the floor or whatever. But I quite like that. That's pretty cool. Now a couple of things here. One is a fun button here. Use tear. Now if we turn that on and we play that again. Oh, there we go. Oh, that's not really working properly. I think maybe try turning that down a bit. Okay, well when I was playing with it in the test, that was looking really cool. It just basically put a hole in it wherever something went through it, but that's not working properly here, so we'll just ignore that and pretend that never happened. Right, okay. So the other thing we need to do here, this is an important point. Okay, so we have a look at this cloth. Now when you're doing cloth, you don't really want it reflective, unless you're trying to get a silk kind of look or something like that. You don't really want it reflective. So what I found was basically just create a texture. This default color, which is just off white, turn the specular off and place that on the cloth. And I think that actually looks really good. I mean, we've got some dark shadows in here, but that's just lighting issues, but I think that's pretty cool actually. That looks fairly good, like a little ghost. So that's cool. We'll stick with that for the minute. And next we want to fix this intersecting issue. Now a couple of ways you can do this. One is to create like a shell, like create another object that's slightly bigger than this, and then set that with the collider and hide it so it's invisible. But I didn't do it like that. I actually utilized the way I'm going to lift the cloth from the letter. So to do this, I'm going to create a cube and shrink that down a bit. Press T to get scale. Shrink that down a bit, and I'm going to place that above the R, like so. Alright, we want it about there, I think. So let's let that drop down. Actually, let's give ourselves a few more frames to work with here, because otherwise this is quite tricky. Let's go for 800, plenty of frames then. Okay, so we want that to fall off the M, that's cool, right, okay. So that's now sitting where I want it. I'm just going to turn the hypernurb off for a second, and I'm going to select the point mode here. Okay, with the plane selected, we can see the points. We just want to grab a few of these. So basically the ones that are curving around the top are the ones we're interested in. So if you click and hold, you can just move along and grab them. Right, so we've got those. Now what we're going to do is basically attach these to our cube, and it's our cube that's going to lift the cloth. Alright, so the way we do this is the cube must be editable, so we press C and make the cube editable. And then we go back to the plane, right click, and under simulation you'll see cloth belt. So So we're going to put that tag on, and then we're going to drag the cube into the belt like that and press set. And what you can see is that it's kind of drawn these lines. Now, if we press play, you see it kind of holds it up like that. So that's cool, that's what we want. So we turn our hyperNURBS back on, we select the cube, and we go back to object mode, press play, and then just grab this and just lower it until it's about where you want. Now you may, like I say, you may get this issue. You could just move it about a bit. I mean, it doesn't matter for me with this scene. It doesn't matter if it's poking out the back, but obviously, if you're having that trouble, then you just select more of the points. But I want to get that corner covered, so it's being a bit of a bugger. There we go. Okay. So then we'll just hit pause. So the cloth's sitting, and we go to the cloth tag, and we go to dresser, and we do initial state set. There we go. And now we can rewind back to the beginning, and the cloth is there, sitting on the R. Okay, so now we need to do the same thing with the M. So let's turn on our cloth. Now that's probably actually a bit short, so I'm going to make this plane a little bit longer, like so. And remember, I'm going to make it editable, and I'm going to right click and do simulation cloth. Press play, and that should fall. Now obviously this is going to start hitting your PC a bit. I can't think of what I'm trying to say here. This is going to hit the calculation times a bit, but I didn't find it was horrendous. But we can see that one's kind of working, so we just need to set those settings again. So under for tag, we'd go stiffness, say 70, flexion about 3 or 4, bounce is about 4, friction is about 45, and mass is 0.5. And we'll now let that fall, and hopefully it won't catch on that too much. There it goes, there. And that's now falling down there, so that's cool. You do get a little bit of intersecting with the old cloth stuff, but it's not the end of the world really. Right, we need another cube, so I'm just going to create another one, shrink it down a bit, put it up there, shrink it down a bit. I'm loving this OpenGL issue. Just have a look at the top, because yeah, I made that mistake on this one. See, I've got the cube a bit far forward, so we'll just move that one back a bit. I'm also going to move the F just temporarily out of the way so that it doesn't catch. Right, that's cool. So we'll rewind and we'll put the cube here. Let's move the plane down a bit. Oops. No, we can't move the plane because it's got a cloth tag on it. We can't move it around once it's got the cloth tag on it. That's right. So we'll put the cube just above it there. Make a copy of the cube because we're going to want that in a minute. Let me just put that over here and switch that one off. Okay, so this one, we make the cube editable. We go to our plane. We want to put it into a hyperNURBS. Hold Alt, and that puts it in. That's brilliant. We're going to switch hyperNURBS off for the moment, and we're going to let it fall. Hopefully this is going to come down. So I just want to give it a minute. No, that's cool. That'll do. And then in the top view, no, just in this view will do. We want to select the plane. Let's go to points mode, and again we just want to grab the points that are on top. I'll tell you what, I will use the top view, and we'll just grab the points that are on the top of it here. I grabbed an extra one there. Okay, another way of doing this, if we just restart that. Alright, this might be a bit easier. If we just grab the points that are due to be, it does mean you get a slightly bigger kind of block above the letter, but it's if you can't really see them, then it's quite cool. I might deselect those. If you hold Control, you can deselect points. I'm gonna just try this. This may not work. Right, we've got our points selected. We're going to right click, we do simulation cloth belt, and we are going to add it to, we're going to add cube number 1 to that and do set. And there we go, you can see we've got the lines. So that's cool. And then when we go to this mode, we want to turn the hypernubs back on. Select object, select the cube, and then press play. And just slowly lower our cube. There we go, just don't go further than the letter. Oh, didn't want to do that. Let me just pause that a moment and move this. There we go. Yeah, that's not too bad. That's kind of sitting in an interesting way. So we'll set that as its initial thing. So it's the cloth tag, dresser, and set that as its initial state. Then we can rewind back to the beginning. Right, we've got one more to do, which is the F, which if you remember, we just need to move in a bit. Like that. We'll turn on our last plane there. Okay, and we're going to make our last plane, just going to make it ever so slightly bigger, and make it editable. Add the cloth tag. I'm not copying this tag from the other ones onto it because it seems, whenever I've done that, it's always kept the settings from the other one when I've dragged it, so it's as in position settings, so I've always kind of just made a new one and just gone to here and set the settings kind of as I've been doing them, something like that. Okay, and finally put this one into a hypernub. Let's see what happens. Now obviously we've got quite a lot going on here. We've got quite a bit of an issue here with it catching on the M's one, so I'm just gonna what am I going to do for that? I'm going to continue as normal and we'll move it with the cube. Or I could just turn all of this off. Let me see if that affects it. Turn off the M. Let's see if it works. No, so it's like an invisible ghosty thing. It's a bit weird actually. Mind you, it might slide off. Oh, we could be lucky. Ah, cool, that's what we want. That's what we want to happen. Brilliant. There we go. Right, lovely. So then we'll turn the hypernerbs off. Select the pane, select point mode. Let's get in there and have a look. I'm going to grab, select point mode, not with scale, that won't do us any good. Select that, and let's grab those ones. Cool. And we're going to, we've got our cube, just turn that back on. Interesting. Press C to make that editable. And on this one we right click, we do cloth belt, we put cube number 2 in there and we do set. Excellent. Right, so now we need to start again. That's interesting. Let's see what this does. Oh, I have to go back to object mode. So you don't want to move, yeah, see, if you move things too quickly, the cloth tends to sort of flap around like there's no tomorrow. Let's turn the hyperNURBS back on so we can kind of see what's going on here. So I want to move this way. Move it up a bit, forward a bit. There we go. Right, let's give that a moment just to settle. Okay, and then the dresser and set the initial state. Let's turn on our other bits again. Alright, and we'll position our camera. Cool, okay. Oops. Something I forgot to do was actually put a texture on the lettering. So we'll just create a new texture, double click down here, double click the texture, drag and place that onto the lettering, hold control and you can copy that onto all of them. I'm going to do something like a bit of a reddy orange colour again, maybe a little darker. A bit of reflection, not too much though, and turn on a Fresnel and put that back down to about there, something like that. Turn off the specular, we don't need that. Yeah, that will do for our text. Oh, we've already done that bit, so that's fine. Let's just have a look. We should just see it just poking through a little bit. Oops. We need to also put this texture onto our other cloths like that. I'm wondering, I might change the colour of the studio. We've got a bit of an issue over here, look, you can see. So what I want to do, press play, and I'm going to just move this cube a bit. Like that. There we go. Wait for it to settle. Go back to, it was this one, and set the initial state. There we go. Cool. Just check that's okay. Yeah, I like this. This looks pretty cool. We do have a little bit there. Might need to just move this cube a little bit more this way. I made this one, it's not really, the cloth's not really big enough. Right, that should do it. There we go, so back to this one, set its initial state, there we go, right. What else can I do? So let's change, I'm going to just change the floor colour, I'm going to make that white. And I'm also going to turn on the floor reflection. This is a feature within InVideo. You could do it if you just add a reflection to the floor and set all of that up, but obviously it's with InVideo, it's nicely there, so you haven't got to worry too much. But because it's a white floor, we need a bit of reflection like that, and I'm also going to just add a touch of blur to it, and press go. There we go. So that looks pretty groovy. It's hitting me render time a bit, but that's cool. Okay, quite happy with that. Just going to change my aspect ratio just because I don't like working in this 4:3. I like 16:9. There we go. It's a bit better. Okay, so I'm going to create a camera and position that. Let's give it a bit of a wide angle kind of look. Put it down here near the floor. Right, let's look at the next thing to do is to animate the cubes so that they lift them off. Okay, so we'll start off at about frame 20. Start with cube number 1, and we want to animate its Y axis. So we hold control and click the little point there, go forward some frames, and just basically chuck the cube up into the sky. Hold control and press that, there we go. Come back a few frames, and we do cube 2, keyframe position Y, go forward a load, and chuck that up into the sky. Same thing for cube number 3, position Y, and chuck that up there, like so. Cool, and let's just check that. Obviously it's not running its fastest because we're doing 3. You could just do it with 1, but I quite like the idea of 3. So that's lifting off the first one there to reveal the R. That's lifting off the next. That looks pretty cool. And then finally that's lifting off the F. Now they're a bit slow in actual time, so let's switch to animation layout. So window, customization, layouts, animation. Right, so now we can kind of see our movements. So I'm going to grab the 3. These are the keyframes. So that's where it starts to move, and then that's where it gets there. So I'm just going to move this one in, and this one in, and then I'm going to move that one in a bit, move that one in a bit. So I've just rearranged them just so that it all happens a little quicker. So the first one goes up, second one then starts to go, and the third one starts to go. That's cool. I'm just going to bring the third one in just a touch more. Oops. So I'll just highlight those keyframes and then just drag the lot. Right, and with this I'm going to animate the camera, so it's just sort of moving around a bit. So with the camera highlighted, I'm just going to hit the keyframe button there, and I'm going to move around to when the last, let's just press play actually, and we'll go through until the last cloth kind of lifts off. Like so, and so. So at about that point there, I want to move the camera round and across to about there. Actually, maybe just slightly there. That's cool. Keyframe. So now you can see the camera, we've just got this little camera move. So it's coming around like that. Nice and subtle. Don't worry about that when that's happening, it's fine. And then, so basically around this point I want these, in my example I just moved these 2 in. So the R first, we're going to animate its x-axis, so we click there, and we move forward. I'm going to move forward 5 or so frames. I'm going to move it in, and I'm going to move it ever so slightly more than I want it, press a keyframe, and then just move forward 2 frames and just move it back a bit to where I do actually want it. That just gives it a little bit of an inertia. It only takes a second, so it's not difficult. Then we're just going to go back a few frames because I want the F to start moving about here. We'll select the F, keyframe, forward about 5 frames, and move that in, same deal. Another 2 frames, and then just move it back a little touch. Like that. And then I'm going to come back a couple of frames, and at this point I'm going to move the camera sort of pretty quickly and just do a sort of zoom in. Oh, make sure you select the camera before you press the keyframe button. And then, then I'm going to move to the sort of about 150 here and just have the camera continue on, just so the camera continues So let's have a look at that, see how that looks. Okay, well, we've got some problems have arisen. Not quite sure why. We'll have a look at that in a second. Right, my timing's a little bit off. The camera move is too soon, so I'm just going to grab the camera and do that. Right, okay. Now, I'm not sure why. It seems to be the F and the R, so it doesn't seem to have liked... I don't think it's liked... Oh, there we go. Strange little bug, that one. Cool. One last little thing. Just going to zoom in here. I'm going to make these a little quicker. Boom. There we go. Alright, and that's pretty much it. Something that I would maybe suggest is to press Control D, go to Dynamics, Expert, maybe stick that up to about 10 steps per frame, just so it works out a little bit more, and then cache, and then bake it. I'll cancel that because what I've just remembered, if you've still got 800 odd frames, that will sit and try and cache 800 frames worth. So I'm going to put 160 in there, and then I'm going to press bake, and then hopefully that should be considerably quicker. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Then just render it out as normal, and do what you want to do with it. A couple of things to note are that if you have any shapes that the cloth sits under, ends up sitting underneath, oh no, we've got a problem. So everything is fine except for the R. Ah. It does seem to be different each time. I didn't have this earlier when I was playing with it. I wonder if I've done something differently. Layouts, standard. Let's just have a look. So, I'm going to clear this cache. I don't even think that's even done anything. I think maybe because cloth works differently. It's got its own cache, look. Right, so, okay. I'm going to fix the... I want to try and fix the R, which is cube 1. Which, of course, because I've got keyframes on now, it won't let me move it around. Ah, that's annoying. Okay, let's see if we can fix this. Yeah, see, it's not really working at all. So we'll turn off the hyperNURBs a minute. So, and that's still coming through there. Okay, let's see, how would we fault find this. So firstly, I'm just going to delete the animation for the cube. So right click, animation, delete track. And there we go. Now the cube isn't animated anymore. I don't want to move the camera, so I'm going to switch the camera off. There we go. Okay, and let's grab hold of this cube. Let's start the animation. Just doesn't seem to be seeing the R at all, does it? So let's try delete the R's tag and create it again. Aha, that seems to have fixed it. Okay. So let's go back to the beginning. Turn the hypernerbs back on. Right, there's a little bit poking out there, so we'll just move that slightly. Like that. Okay. Ah. It's kind of doing what it wants under there. So it seems to not like the animation on it. That's funny, I didn't get that earlier. It seems to not like the animation on the R. Yeah, as soon as it does the animation on the R. So if I delete that one, simulation cloth collider, do that. Yeah, that seems to be kind of back working again. So, okay. It's an interesting thought. I'm not sure why that is. Okay, let's see. Let's press play. I want to make sure it's fully covering it. Oops. I might just delete this cube and do this again. Just grab a new cube, shrink it down, bring it over and bring it up. Let's rewind back to the beginning and turn the hypernerbs off. Go to the belt. So those were the points I'd selected before, so let's select a few more points this time. So point mode, select the plane. If we hold shift, it includes those as well. So we'll grab something like that. Go to the belt. We have to make that, oops. We have to make the cube editable, don't forget that. Cube set. Oops. Set. Alright, okay. And move the cube about. Got some really odd ghosting issues. I'm pretty sure this is my OpenGL, so let me just turn that back off again. It makes it look a bit funky, but right. This one just seems to have the hump altogether. I'm going to create the whole bit again. Let's do the whole thing again. I know you've seen it a few times now, but I don't really want to cut any bits out of this, so you might as well see the whole process of me trying to get it right. It's going to be a long one though, but let's just do this. Okay, so we'll create our plane, make it editable, give it a cloth tag, place it into a hypernerbs, and let it fall. Okay, that's cool. Let's set the tag settings. 73, 45, whatever, 45, 0.5. Oops. Okay. And then we want a cube. Shrink it down. Move it there, move it up. Have a look above. Make sure it's sitting over the R. Along with our plane. Okay. Select the plane and select the right click, simulation cloth belt. Make the cube editable. Select some of the points, so we turn off the hypernerbs, select point mode, and grab a bunch that are above the above the R, and we select the tag, put the cube into belt on, and press set. Right, and that gives us our points. And we go back to object mode, and we press play, and we move this cube. Oh, let's turn on the hyper NURBS. Remove this cube very slowly. It's in the right place. Cool. And we then set that material on there. The cube at position, what was it, 20, something like that. The cube needs a keyframe in Y, and then we'll go forward to, I don't know, 45 or something, and we'll put that right up. And we'll say go, like that. Ah, we did forget to set the thing, so I'm just going to undo. Just I need to let it fall again. I forgot to set the initial state. Okay, so we'll put that there. Okay, that'll do there, right? So dresser, set initial state. Now we need to put the keyframes in to raise the cube. That one, and then put that right up, and that one. Okay, then when we rewind, the cube will go up, and there we go. Right, and it lifts it off. Brilliant. Now because this one is playing around, I'm just going to select this. I'm going to go to cache, and I'm going to do calculate cache. Let's see what this does. And then hopefully this will sort out the cloth so it won't change, you know, just by moving anything around slightly. So it's doing them one at a time. Okay. Well, it's not always works perfectly every time. You obviously sometimes you come across things and you have to work out how to get around them. In this case it was to delete it and start again. Right. So I'm going to put it on the camera again. I'm going to hide the cubes. So if you hold Alt and press here, it just hides the cubes. Just double click them. There we go. Now the cubes can't be seen. Press play. You see we've got our nice camera move. It lifts the R off. It lifts the M off, and it lifts the F off. Now the one thing I would have maybe have done, but I've cached it now, so this R, it's lifting off a bit quickly, but yeah, it is. So the R, that's essentially done, but I'm going to temp fade it a bit here, so I'm going to empty the cache, and I'm just going to select this keyframe. Oops. Rewind that. Select this keyframe just by dragging that area there. I'm just going to move this over to about 80. And try that. Sure enough, it has broken it again. But yeah, okay. So it seems to be okay as long as you don't animate the movement. So I think that was just unfortunate that I just added that in because I thought it looked cool. I think other than that, you'd probably be fine. Yeah, let's see it as it's broken it. That's really annoying. But okay, well there we go. Something learned there. Don't animate the letters after the cloth has moved, because that causes the cloth to just go through them. But there you go. That's the basics of it. Hopefully you'll do something a lot better with it than I did, because that was essentially a bit naff in the end. But you know, it's a bit of fun. So yeah, cheers. In case you were interested in the Infidio thing, you can find out about it on the site. It's an Infinity Studio for cinema. Just saves you having to set everything up, and it's got all the settings built into it, so you can just easily make changes and that sort of thing without having to, you know, go and hunt around for them. Yeah. And obviously if you do anything, I really want to see them, so be sure to send them into the site in the comments or whatever like that. Okay, cheers then, I'll see you again.